That's okay. That's good. All right, here we go. Ready? 3, 2. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are so excited for the second installment. This is our first 2-part episode, really, and we're going to be talking about somebody who was an absolute legend of the faith. This is the Ordinary Legends podcast, where we share the stories of ordinary people who became legends of the faith, not because they were so incredible or fantastic all on their own, but because they said yes to God. They were obedient. And I'm here with Spencer. What else can you tell us about our legend for today?
Well, the legend for today, I was about to give away the gender. We can't do that yet.
It's a girl. It's a girl.
Okay, it's a girl. I was looking at it, I was like, what's the main thing about this person's life? And I feel like the faith, it wasn't just like fearless faith that she had, but it was just obedient faith.
Not an invincible Wonder Woman who
we're like, okay, I got the power up. I got the fearless faith. It was just obedience.
Yeah. And here to tell us about that person,
the one and only,
our first female co-host or specialist expert, Rachel Brondak, everybody.
Let's go.
Hi.
Glad to have you, Rachel. No pressure. But if you don't know, Rachel is wife, spouse to our middle school pastor Josiah, who did last week's episode about Jim Elliot. And so, surprise, surprise, you're going to tell us about Elisabeth Elliot. Elizabeth with an S, if you didn't know.
Yes.
Is it really with an S?
Yes, I love the way she spells it.
It is. Yeah. And so we would love for you to, give us like the second part of the Elliot sort of saint story of those 5 missionaries, but especially Jim and Elisabeth Elliot. You're going to tell us all about things. How many books have you read? You were telling us a little bit about that. You've read like 7 of her books, 100 of her books.
I've read almost all of her books.
That's incredible.
Almost all of her books. Whatever I could get my hands on, because some of them were out of print for a while until recently when they started reprinting them.
So they're making a comeback because of this episode, probably.
Oh, probably.
Because they're like, man, people are picking up on Elisabeth Elliot's story ever since that podcast, Ordinary Legends.
Yeah, there
started
you
right here, guys.
Started
right here.
That's it.
Yeah.
For sure.
And so we're so excited to hear more about her life and the ways that we can be inspired to follow Jesus, to maybe take up the cause of Christ in the way that her and many others have. But I think we'd really be regretting this opportunity if we didn't take this chance to ask you just a couple of questions about what is it like? we want the tea. What is it like being married to our wonderful middle school pastor Josiah?
The insider information.
Yeah.
Insider
He's not here.
information.
He's off, saving the world in the other room doing middle school pastor stuff. And I know you wouldn't talk bad about. There's probably nothing bad to say about him, right? But we want to know.
I always tell people that I'm like, I think he's awesome, and I have to live with him, and you like see the worst parts of everyone that you live with.
Yeah.
But Pastor Edgar jokingly said that a big reason they hired Josiah is because
It was
of what I
because of
said.
you. Oh yeah.
About him.
It's true.
But I really do look up to him. I was friends with him for years before we ever even were interested in each other, and so I really look up to him. He is very, and I'm sure you know this because you work with him. He's kind of like absent-minded, a little bit scatterbrained, kind of all over the place.
No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And so the way that
That's a lot of pastors, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but like when he's, we're all a little neurodivergent, right?
Oh, yeah.
So like when we're
he's
in
locked
pressure
in,
situations,
he's
it's like,
locked in.
we're awesome. But so the way that like comes out at home, it's a little messy.
What?
He's a little bit of a hoarder.
A hoarder. You heard it here, folks.
Wow.
Pastor
likes to
Josiah
keep stuff.
is. Oh no, that's not true.
We'll have show and tell next
What
week.
if we need it?
You might need it. You might need it.
In 2 years.
That's
you know?
I think that's a dad thing too. It's like it's like you find that one
We're
2x4 that was
cultural.
cut
He's
at
from,
an odd
he's
frame
from,
angle.
there are jokes like that. There
Yeah.
are jokes that dads have that. I think that's a funny video.
Yeah,
oh, that one piece of wood.
I found it. Yeah. What is that? They're like the sons and
yes,
the dad. I
okay.
can't remember.
Yeah.
Oh,
that
it's
was
gonna be
And he
funny.
finally
later.
uses the 2x4.
that he saved in the basement.
Yeah.
It's Josiah.
So Josiah, I mean, he's a little bit messy, a little bit scatterbrained, but he's an amazing father. He's a very much a servant heart. Like the way
I've
that
seen
he
that.
loves our family is that he serves us.
Yeah.
And that is sometimes it's hard for me because I am a quality time person. I'm like, I don't want you doing stuff for me. I want to be with you. Like, let's talk face to face.
He's like, I'm sorry, I'm just too
I
selfless.
did the dishes.
I'm
I
too
got
much of a hero. Yeah,
I know.
I painted the house and redid the roof and all of these things while
Put
you
up
were
my
sleeping.
Christmas lights up until 3 a.m. That's
What a
what he
guy.
does. He's a great,
He's a hero. He's a hero. We love Pastor Josiah, and he has nothing but good things to say about you. So we're excited too. And you get to lead one of our small groups on Sunday mornings now. That's pretty recent.
I've been really enjoying that with the 6th grade girls.
Yeah.
The 6th grade girls is an interesting group of people. And
It is.
I am
They
enjoying it, especially with Melody. It's
They're
fun.
awesome.
Yeah.
Shout out to Lottie Minter, one of our greatest leaders. So we're gonna resist the temptation to just ask more and more and more about Josiah, what it's like in the Brondike home. We are not surprised by any of those things.
Because of Elisabeth Elliot,
Yes,
I'm very I try not to say anything negative, but he's great.
He really is.
But we all have flaws.
Oh,
And so-
yeah.
and
even Josiah. I haven't
It's nice
seen
that
him
he doesn't
sin
share
yet.
mine.
I haven't seen him sin yet, but I'm sure he does somehow, somewhere. So
Somewhere.
why don't you go ahead and tell us the gist of Elisabeth Elliot? And if you missed last week's episode about Jim Elliot, it would be helpful maybe to hit pause, go listen to that one, then jump back in, because this is about Elisabeth, whereas last week was about Jim. But also, this is like part 2 a little bit of the story. Is like, where did things
Kind of like a continuation.
pick up?
Yeah.
In large part after, spoiler alert, if you didn't listen to last week's episode, her husband Jim passed away.
Yeah.
So without further ado, why don't you take us away?
All right, here it goes. So Elisabeth Howard was born overseas in Belgium while her parents were serving in Christian ministry overseas. She was born in So she was a missionary kid born in Belgium in 1926. When she was a few years old, they moved back to Philadelphia, Germantown specifically, because her dad's family, they were the editors of this magazine called the Sunday School Times. And during that time in American history, it was one of the few Christian publications that was nationally known.
Is that almost like a Lifeway or something
Kind
like
of,
that today?
yeah, like, you know,
Sort of
well,
Sunday
yeah.
School Times.
Yes,
Wow.
it was called the Sunday School Times. And it was a Christian publication, and her dad's family did the editorial work. He eventually became the editor. But the majority of her life, she actually grew up in my mom's hometown, Moorestown, New Jersey, which is a suburb of Philadelphia.
Cool.
And so that's where her family raised her. She was raised in a very orderly home. I believe she was one of 6 children. It's hard to keep them all track of all of them. But the majority of them were in Christian ministry service.
That's awesome. Mom and Dad were doing something right, probably.
Yes, yeah. They raised their kids to love the Lord. They weren't really into like denominations. They just we want solid Bible preaching.
Mm-hmm.
We want expositional preaching and teaching in our church with our children. So they actually went to a couple different types of churches growing up, as long as it was solid biblically. So their children, and because their dad was the editor of the Sunday School Times, they had tons of experience with people coming into their homes, different missionaries, traveling evangelists, preachers, teachers, people you might know, Betty Stam.
Yeah, I heard about that
Yeah.
just this morning. I was listening to an audiobook about her, and I thought, what are the chances? So you go ahead and tell it. You're going to say it way better.
Well, she stayed in their home because that's what their family did. They practiced hospitality convictionally from Scripture, and they hosted missionaries on furlough in their home. They wanted their children to learn about what it looked like and meant to serve Christ wholeheartedly. And Betty Stam stayed in their home, and Betty, Elisabeth Elliot, everyone who knew her called her Betty. She just adored her. And so I think she was 8 when Betty was martyred for Christ.
Yeah.
And it's in her earliest journals as a child that she wrote about it, and she understood the cost of following Christ at a young age.
At 8 years old.
At 8
That's
years
crazy.
old. She wrote that her friend Betty had gone to be with Jesus.
So if you haven't listened to it before, the life and testimony of John and Betty Stam was the first episode that we did for Ordinary Legends, when we were just figuring this whole thing out. So if you haven't listened to it, I really encourage you to go back and listen to that one as well.
Yep.
But
Yep.
what are the chances?
Yeah, I thought that was so cool too. I didn't know that until I read these new authorized biographies by the Elisabeth Elliot Foundation. I knew a lot of her life because I read all of her books, and especially Through Gates of Splendor, Shadow of the Almighty, The Savage, My Brethren. So I learned so much about her, but the biography is phenomenal, sharing so much of what she's her growing up years.
Right. So Jim and Elisabeth both did a lot of writing, but Elisabeth way more writing.
So much. Prolific. She's a prolific writer.
We were thinking as we started this episode, if you are willing, our viewers, our wonderful, incredible viewers, listeners, if you are willing to subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, comment on YouTube, and share a clip of this podcast to your story, and then just send us a message and say, hey, I did all of it. I got the hat trick or whatever. Then let us know, and we would love to enter you into a drawing. It's probably not going to be that big. We don't have like billions of followers, and we'd love to give you a chance at getting one of these books.
Yeah.
And we couldn't figure out which one would be best, so we'll talk to you and figure out. Do you want? You said she has a book about depression and a book about
loneliness.
So it's called The Path
day?
of Loneliness.
Yeah.
I love that book. Also, Passion and Purity is her and Jim Elliot's love story, and that was very formative in my dating years, learning like how to honor Christ and passionately love someone, but walk in purity because I love Jesus. So that was a phenomenal book. I think that one is great for both young men and young women.
Okay.
It's from both of their perspectives. So
yeah,
she
so
wrote that.
we'll figure out which one fits best for you. If you're like, I'm looking for somebody, we'll figure that out.
And then
with
also
you.
we were talking about how every young person should be reading Shadow of the Almighty,
okay,
or Through
gotcha.
Gates of Splendor and
Either
Shadow
one,
of the Almighty. Both of those are their story.
Yeah,
so
awesome.
so yeah.
So sorry to interrupt. Yeah,
no,
yeah.
it's okay. So just a little bit about her background. The Lord really used a lot of things in her life to prepare her for her future ministry, like being a host home to missionaries and preachers and evangelists, stuff like that. But also when she was in her teen and college years was during World War II. And she really wanted to go to a Christian school. And where she was growing up, that was not a possibility. So she went to a place called the Hampton DeBose Academy in Florida. And when she went during the war, it was, you're there all year. There's no coming home. There's no Christmas break, no Easter break. There's no phone calls because phone calls cost a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
So there was just letters. That's why we have so much of her writing between her parents, her siblings, her friends. So that was a great training ground of like, imagine being 14 years old and going away and not seeing your family for years. And then after that, she went to Wheaton College, which was not something that a lot of women did. Not a lot of women during her time went to college. She saw it very much as a privilege, as an honor, as a gift, and she really just wanted to utilize that, that gift that she had been given. She had originally gone and wanted to be an English major, but as she grew in her walk with the Lord, she really saw that she had a knack for languages. She studied Greek to the point where she read books in Greek.
So she wasn't just
Yeah.
kind of dangerous in Greek. She was like
Gifted,
fair to say an expert.
gifted in languages, which will
Yeah.
come up in her later life, which
Yeah.
is phenomenal. The Lord really gifted her, and it's actually where she met Jim. I think Josiah
Wow.
mentioned that
At Wheaton
last
College?
week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Wheaton College in Greek. So
Wow.
and they both found each other fascinating. And he was friends with her older brother, and so he had come home for Christmas break.
Wow.
While they were at Wheaton College, and they weren't like, oh, I'm Twitter pated, I'm in love with this. It was just like, oh, this is a really interesting person. We could talk for hours and hours and
I
hours,
like
and we
that.
have
I mean,
yeah.
If you both are like really good at Greek and understand, like you have to be together because usually people are just trying to get past the class.
Yeah, and he was friends with her older brother who she adored, and so that was
that's cool.
that was also a great inroad for Jim.
There you go.
And also gave her family a lot of patience with Jim over their very long and drawn out courtship.
Yeah, Josiah told us about that a
Which
little bit
is
last
just
week.
unseen and unheard of in those days. People like got married. That's what you did. Like,
Right.
what do you mean you're dating for 5-6 years? This is weird.
No, that's normal.
But yeah, so after she graduated Wheaton College, she was a year older than Jim. She went into a program with, now we know it, well, I don't think it's called Wycliffe anymore. It might be Ethnos 360, I think, but it was initially called Wycliffe Bible Translators. It might still be called Wycliffe.
That's the name.
Yeah,
I
I think
think
it's called
it's-
Wycliffe. Yeah, it's
yeah.
still called Wycliffe. Ethnos 360 is a different one.
They do some other stuff.
I think
together
I've been calling
sometimes.
it Wycliffe this whole time.
Yeah,
Um,
it's Wycliffe.
What a dweeb.
Sorry.
It's definitely
okay.
Wycliffe. I'm
It's
joking.
okay.
I'm joking.
It's someone's last name, and
Yeah.
so that's the easiest way to pronounce
go.
it. But she did a summer linguistic study with them, and then after that, she went up to Prairie Bible College in Alberta, Canada. And so a lot of this, yes, she was interacting with Jim. She was waiting for Jim, but she just didn't sit around waiting for a man
She was busy.
to marry. She busied herself
Yeah.
about the work of the Lord. She knew that she was gifted in language. she believed she had her own call to ministry. So like Josiah mentioned in your last podcast, there wasn't just like this magical call, like hear from the Lord, God has opened up the heavens and spoke to me. She walked with conviction that like we have all been given the Great Commission. But there was a specific verse that the Lord used, Isaiah 42:6, where she believed like that's what I'm called to do. I think I gave that verse to you guys, but
Oh yeah, we'll pull that up just a minute.
Isaiah 42, 6 and
6.
7.
There it is.
Yeah, and so that really challenged her. Like I'm called to go and reach the nations for Christ, and so that's really why she went into doing the linguistic program and going up to Prairie Bible College and doing whatever she could do to serve people and make inroads for the gospel wherever she was.
Yeah,
so
that's so cool.
At their paths meet in Ecuador. And that's where she's down there. She's learning Spanish because apart from Jim, she knows Jim was called to, serve unreached people groups. But Elisabeth was making all these different relationships as she was busy about serving God.
Right.
And there was a woman that she lived with that like, God's calling me to these people and like, you should come with me.
The lady she was living with said that?
The lady, the young woman she was living with, they were around the same age. Kind of both single women. And that's how Elisabeth ended up down there. And she hated the perception that people are like, oh, she's just chasing Jim across the world.
She's like, no, I'm the expert. He's running around in the jungle, doesn't know what he's doing, but I'm gonna.
She's just like, I have my own call, and I think I've had a lot of interactions with ministry wives over the years. I think what works great for Josiah and I is we both had our own call to ministry, like our own, like the Holy Spirit convicted us of the truth of God's word. And I knew that no matter who I married, no matter what I did, I knew that God had called me to full-time Christian service, whatever that would look like in the future. And I think that is really what held Elisabeth through so much of her suffering in life is she knew what God had called, equipped, and gifted her to do. And so she ended up in Ecuador. She was learning. So at this point, she's a linguist. She knows Greek and Hebrew. She's now studying Spanish. So she learns Spanish. And then she goes to her first Indian tribe, the Colorado people. And so she initially goes to them. She's working with them with this young woman, and she's learning their language and just different circumstances. She ends up, getting married to Jim, and then they go to the Quechua people. And so she then learns Quechua.
And that's in Ecuador?
Ecuador.
So now they're in Ecuador. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
It was Colorado people?
The Colorado people were originally in Colombia.
Okay.
That's where she was.
I was like, wait, they're in Colorado? I'm so ignorant.
I can't pronounce their native name. I bet
weird. Colorado was originally like a Spanish
that's what
word
she,
anyways.
That's what she
like
called
our Colorado
them.
Is called,
yeah, that's what she called them. And that's what the majority of the people called them. And the author of the biographies that I read, if things were like inappropriate, she corrected them to like modern day terms. That's why she doesn't say Auca because it means naked savage. She called them the Waodani people in the biographies.
Like you mean like Pastor Josiah called them that last week?
How did he say it though?
I don't know how to say it. I know. It's just the Waodani people. I don't know. That's that. But
he was saying the other word. He was like, well, that's the one that I know how to say. And like, well, you're kind of microaggressing some people now. I'm joking.
But that's what they call it. So the author of this book, she's like, well, they didn't mean it mean.
Of course,
she's like, not. But we know now what it means. And knowing Elisabeth's heart, who was
why not use that word?
Yeah. So we're going to use the Waodani. But she was initially with the Colorado people. Like I said, I can't pronounce their tribal name because it's got weird sounds that we don't use in the English language. And then she went to the Quechua people. So she learned Greek, Hebrew, Spanish. She tried to learn the Colorado people's language. Quechua.
But even for somebody who's really gifted, it takes time to learn the language. Right.
But this is she's a gifted linguist. She's phenomenal with languages. She was a born mimic. That is what people said about her. And if you had an accent, she could do it excellently. And like if she was talking about someone or sharing a story, she would go into the way that they would say it. She had a very good ear. And so that's how the Lord had gifted her. And so that's really what she brought to the team in Shandia with the Quechua people at the missionary organization with the 5 missionaries, the saints.
So now they're there in what was the name of the place? You said Shandia.
That's
like their base of operations.
That's where she and Jim built a home. Now the 5 missionaries, they all lived near each other, but not right on top of each other.
Gotcha. And so it's almost helpful to hear like how she got there, all the things that God did in her life. And I have some questions I want to come back to after the fact.
Yep.
But then if we were to almost kind of like fast forward through the events of Jim passing away, of Nate and Roger Udare and any of the others being killed, I think it'd be really, really helpful to pick up where Pastor Josiah gave us a teaser last week, because he said, spoiler alert, their wives went back, their families went back to share the gospel even after their husbands and their fathers had been killed, were murdered. Yeah. And we were like, what? How could that even happen? And maybe some of you guys listening were like, I don't know that I could ever do that. Well, today we get the opportunity to camp out and say like, well, here's how they did that. Maybe here's some of the things that they were thinking. Here's what they reflected on after the fact. So do you mind telling us about that portion of their life?
I'm excited. So that wasn't a huge part of their life that I was super familiar with, because I had read through Gates of Splendor and The Shadow of the Almighty. I did not read The Savage, My Kinsman, because when I was younger, and I was reading these books.
That's also by her?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
That was about her time with the Waodani people. That was not available for me to get as a young person. And I really just haven't read a lot since becoming a mom. It's been something that's been difficult. But so I was really excited to reach this part. I knew it because she would reference it in her books that she wrote in her later years. And I knew the stories and I watched the movies. So I knew what happened, but I didn't know from her perspective. So reading through her biography, and so therefore reading through more of her journal entries, like her response to Jim's death, Jim prepared her for his death. He prepared her. They prepared themselves. They knew that this
might happen.
Yeah, they knew that. I mean, Dietrich Bonhoeffer was martyred when they were in college. Her friend Betty Stam died when she was 8. They knew the cost of serving Christ. They knew that these people were murderers. They were killers. This is how they responded. They were literally almost killing themselves into extinction. One thing I want to correct from last week's podcast is, and this is not something that I knew, it's something that came to light after all the biographies were done. Yes, the Waodani were killing themselves into extinction, but the main reason why the men went in when they did is because the government of Ecuador, Ecuador said, we are done with the Auca people. We are done. We're tired of the killing. We're going to go in and eliminate them. They were going to genocide the people. They were either going to imprison them or kill them all. They were done.
So one way or another, they were going to kill themselves into extinction, or
they were going to be eliminated by the government. Wow. And the government saw it as like, we need to protect our people. We need, like, our people keep getting killed by these people. So like we've tried reasoning with them. We've tried to communicate. So it's just like they cannot be reasoned with. It's kind of, it wasn't even like we're evil and we want to genocide people. Right. It's like we feel we have no other option.
Right.
And they didn't have the gospel. They didn't know. Sure. So that was the main push of the men going in when they did. Now. We got to go now, or we're not going to get into them. And so then all of the magazines and all of the articles and everything that came out after the men died, this was worldwide. Like you mentioned, this was the cover of Time magazine, of Life magazine. This was worldwide.
If you
everybody,
can believe it,
basically Time magazine, it said, go into all the world, and it said, and some did, and now they're 5 are dead. So it's like, it's just, it was worldwide, so it brought a lot of attention. And
everybody was probably painting a different story for what happened there.
Right. And so then the next few years, the world was praying for the Waodani to come to Christ. The world was praying. Wow. The sheer amount of letters and telegrams that the wives received of like, we're praying. There was a lot of negative stuff too, like, how dare your men go in there and be foolish? Like, but the world was praying. The world's eyes were on the Waodani, and they were praying for them. And as I was reading Elisabeth's diaries from this time, her response, her last words from Jim, her last command from her husband, her head, was disciple the believers. Teach the believers, darling. Teach the believers. And so she knew her job was to continue to disciple and teach the Quechua Indian believers, and then in her own personal diaries, the longing to reach the Waodani. Her response to her husband's death was not like, how dare they? Like she grieved. This was the love of her life.
Oh, yeah.
Like she's like, what in the world? We only had 2 years and 3 months together.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And at the time of his death, they were planning to have another child. And so all of her hopes and dreams had been torn from her, but her response, the deep calls and prayers and cries of her heart are, Lord, here am I, send me. Send me to them, Lord, send me to them. I need to share the gospel with them. I need them to know the hope that they have in Christ. And like it was this all-consuming desire in her heart and in her journals for 2 years. God, send me, I'm willing to go. Of course, no one really wanted them to go, but all of them
back to the Waodani people.
Back to the Waodani people. What if they kill you? What if they kill Valerie? And she's like, well, then I'll be then I'll be in heaven with Jim. She's
Right.
like, what
Win-win.
matters if they kill
yeah.
me? That was just kind of, and there were some people like, are you suicidal? And she's like, no, but if I die, I'm going to be in heaven with Jim.
Which would be a fair question to ask.
Yeah.
Not that they're you know, just reaching necessarily.
Yeah, no, like she struggled with what she called melancholy, but she just had this deep longing to reach them with the gospel that her husband died to bring them. And she just she finally felt, she wrote in one of her journals, this call that he had, this strong desire, this strong pull to reach these people with the gospel. She finally received that desire, that pull to reach them. And so the next couple years as she's praying like I said, she just plodding along in her Christian life. She's busy about serving the Lord. A lot of what she did is she was a medic. She delivered babies. She helped with snake bites. She taught at school.
Wow, what can she not do?
There's
a
so
linguist
many.
and a medic.
Well, when you're a missionary in the jungles, they teach you a lot of things.
You've got to know those things. You can't afford not to. Yeah.
And it's not like she like saved everybody's lives. There were a lot of people that she lost, but she was busy about doing the work of not just physical salvation and saving people, but teaching the gospel. And she was also very decidedly women are not to be pastors and leaders and teachers. She was very decidedly that. And so she felt very uncomfortable because they had this Quechua ministry, but all the men were gone. All the men were killed. Right. And so all the wives were left. And so she kept hearing, teach the believers, darling, teach the believers. And so she would look for Quechua Indians that, had some leadership gifting, and she would disciple them and help them write sermons. She's like, it is not my job to lead your church. And so many of the Quechua Indians came to faith in Christ the year or two after because
they seen that faithfulness.
Because they saw the faithfulness, and they also prayed that we need to reach the Waodani. So there were so many people like, we need to get there, we need to get there, we need to get there. And one day, almost a year and a half, almost 2 years after the death of the men, two Waodani women come into the camp and just said, like, we're here. And basically just like planted themselves, and Elisabeth went and lived with them in this like hut, and she called them M&M. I can't pronounce their names. Sure. One of them was an older woman that went with the 3 Waodani Indians that met the men initially.
Gotcha.
Like there was Minkaye.
The first interaction.
So there was an older woman, a younger woman, and Minkaye, the man who was in the plane. And so she lived with these women. She tried to learn from them. And then also Rachel Saint, who is not Nate Saint's wife. His wife was Marge Saint. Rachel Saint was his older sister, who was a missionary there longer than them. She was 9 years older than Nate Saint. They both had this strong, strong pull to reach the Waodani. So I wrote here almost 2 years. So in October 6th, 1958, Betty and Rachel and Valerie were led into the jungle by Dayume, the Waodani that was living with the Quechua Indians for many, many years, and these two women.
And now 3 women total.
Yes, so these 3 women were bringing them into the Waodani because they we want our people to know the truth. We want our people to stop killing. We want our people to know God. And so they went, and so that was October 6, 1958. And I believe the men were killed January 8th, 1956.
Wow.
So almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, I guess over 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So it was almost
bit
3
over.
years.
Yeah.
Almost 3 years. That she was just praying like, Lord, help me get there. And she
Not
then
giving up. Like that's a lot. There were probably all kinds of people who were saying, "Hey, come on home. We will take care of you." You know, maybe
her mother-in-law tried to stop her, like,
Yeah.
like, no, do you
Yeah.
know? Don't bring Valerie there. Like,
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
She's a baby. She's 3. Like, don't take her there.
Do you think so? So they did receive them, right? They
They
received.
did.
The
They
women,
received them because they were women
right, and they didn't
and
view
a
them
child.
as a threat.
Right.
as
They didn't
much.
view them as a threat, and so they received them. And actually, the Waodani, they, yes, they were naked, but they actually had a lot of like propriety about like they weren't going to like assault Elisabeth and Rachel. They're like, no, these are like women, and we got to protect them, and that's a child, and we got to keep them safe.
Wow.
Like there was no like they weren't going to attack them in any way. Valerie was raised, with these people and was safe and loved them and saw them as people. One of the, I think it was one of the warriors, Valerie said, he looks like a daddy. Is he my daddy? And that was something that really challenged Elisabeth. She's like, they are just people to my daughter.
Wow.
They're just people. They're not killers.
Yeah. They're not
They're just-
savages.
yeah.
Yeah.
They're just people. And so she lived with them, and she studied their language. She studied their culture, but she was never comfortable with
Well,
them.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rachel was more comfortable with living their life, but Elisabeth liked tea and in teacups, and she liked nice dresses,
Yeah.
and she liked a clean and orderly home, and
Right.
but she was living in mud and huts.
Right.
Yeah.
And,
She went to a boarding college or
Yeah.
a boarding school and then
Yeah.
Wheaton College.
She like
Yeah.
I heard she had a lot of structure in her previous life, and then she came to this, and it's like
There's
every
no
morning
structure.
you wake up, and it's like, we're gonna figure out today we don't have any food. We're
Yeah.
gonna go find food.
Yeah.
So that structure I heard was just killing her. That's
yeah,
just terrible.
yeah,
for
it
her.
was not comfortable for her, but she did it out of, like you said, obedience. The really Josiah said that the one thing that I said about her life was suffering, but yeah, what I've learned from Elisabeth, what I've been discipled by through her is to obey at any cost, to obey the call of the Lord,
Right.
to obey. And she was faithful. And one thing I wanted to draw attention was one really cool conversation with Minkaye. So Minkaye was the one that was up in the airplane that flew over,
Okay.
and he killed Jim.
Oh, wow.
And she knew that this was Jim's killer. And they were all in their hut, laying together in their hammocks. They all had their own hammocks. And later that night, Betty lay in her hammock pondering anew the irony of it all, just like her child is being raised with her husband's killers. And suddenly Minkaye spoke to her in the darkness. Gikari, that's what they called her. Betty responded, "You are my younger sister." Wow. "Are you then my older brother?" she asked. "I am your older brother." And he said, "Your mother is my mother. I call her mother. Your father is my father. Your brothers and sisters are my own brothers and sisters. Will you tell them that? Will you tell them about me? Will you tell them that I call them family?" And she said, "Yes, Minkaye, I will write to them. And they, seeing, will know." And then down here, the author's note, who actually got to meet Minkaye in his late 90s.
The authors did. Wow.
The author did, yeah. She said, Minkaye, he would eventually travel all over the U.S. and the world with Steve Saint, Nate Saint's son, testifying about Jesus' power to transform human lives. He had a big, loving, funny, slightly goofy personality, and I loved spending time with him. Now, she was talking about how he was sharpening a spear to show people. And here he was, this Waodani that killed the missionaries, but now here he was, a mellow brother in Christ, laughing and sharpening a spear as a gift for someone. Minkaye died in late April 2020, a well-loved Christian leader and full of years. And he became a Christian leader in the Waodani community.
Wow.
He loved God. And another a prayer service is so cool to me that one of the other killers, Kimu, he said, "God, you live in heaven. You do well. You make us here. You are only one." And then he prayed for someone's foot to be healed, and he prayed for someone to have ears to believe, to have faith. And he said, "Dabu doesn't
praying
hear."
for someone to accept Jesus.
Yes.
Wow.
So he prayed this way: "Dabu doesn't hear. Make him hear and believe." Long ago, we used to live as black as night. Father God, you did well. You made us well. We grew, but we didn't hear about you. Now you make us do well. We all hear you well now. When Jesus comes back, we'll go with him.
Wow.
And I just, at reading this, like
So
just
powerful.
goosebumps.
Yeah,
now.
I
Like
got them right now.
Same.
these killers just like change. And like what Elizabeth was so ahead of her time in missions work that she just allowed them to be who they were. She didn't try to make them American Christians of the 1950s and 60s. She wanted to give them the gospel of Jesus and allow the Holy Spirit to do the work. And so this was just her recording services, recording prayers. This is how they spoke. And like they wrote, Jesus is our ruler. It is his trail that we follow. That's all.
That's contextualization, right?
Yeah,
That's saying, hey, we don't have white picket fences here in the Amazon,
Right.
and we're not going to try to pretend that we do. And we're not going to say, well, you're supposed to say justification by grace through faith, through the imputed righteousness of Jesus.
Right.
Right.
We're not going to get caught up on seminary words or things like that. Like, put it in your words. And I think definitely.
True faith.
Yeah.
True faith. Yeah.
It's in their heart language, saying, I'm walking your
Right.
trail.
Yes, they are walking his trail.
Right.
That's how they say it. They are
That's
walking the
beautiful.
trail of Jesus.
That's awesome.
And so, like, and Rachel and Elizabeth had a lot of disagreements on the mission field, like how they were to do things. Rachel was with Wycliffe, and they had a very specific way that they
Sure,
went
like,
about doing
this is
their
how we've done it,
ministry.
yeah.
And Elizabeth was an independent missionary. She was from a Plymouth Brethren church and background, but she was an independent missionary. So she had a lot more freedom to do things the way that
Less standardization.
Right,
Yeah.
that she felt called to do. Now there were people that would say like, oh, I prayed a prayer like amongst the Waodani, but Elizabeth didn't believe in like, oh, that's not necessarily fruit. What she claimed as fruit was like what she wrote down, that conversation with Menkaye, that prayer from Kimu.
Right.
Yeah,
And
there's fruit. There's evidence.
visible fruit.
Yeah.
Visible fruit
Yeah.
is what she liked to say was what she would count as
right.
like saving faith. And she stayed long enough to see that happen
Yeah,
in a number of them.
Do we have?
'Cause-
Have we seen some pictures? I know we've been talking so
Yeah,
much
let's put some
about
on.
this, and I've like gotten tunnel vision. So yeah, I don't know if you're not really able to see these so well.
Yeah.
But,
we can kind of twist
That's
it.
Elizabeth. And,
Yeah.
So the little blonde girl, that is Valerie, her daughter.
Right there, yeah.
She called her little blonde gym child.
Who called her that?
Elizabeth.
Like JIM, not
Jim.
GYM.
No, JIM.
Yeah,
For
because
her-
she looked like Jim. Okay,
her
gotcha.
gym child.
I think like
Yeah.
she was
Yeah.
active or a gymnast or
Yeah.
something like that.
She
I'm
looks
tracking.
like Jim. She looks like
Gotcha.
Jim. Even today, she looks like Jim.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so that's her with one of the Indians. The picture wasn't labeled which one, but that's a Waodani woman
Mm-hmm.
That's
that
awesome.
she's with, and those are Waodani children that Valerie's sitting with.
Yeah, we got a lot of them. I know we probably would
Yeah,
have spent.
and so
look at
that
all of them.
bottom
push through.
picture is one of their. They had a few family photos together. That's one of them from 1955.
Wow.
And-
Awesome.
Yep. And there's Valerie being held by one of the M's. I think it's the younger M.
Wow.
Yep.
So there's
That's so
maybe
cool.
in that tribe before they went back to the Waodani people.
Yes. So
Yeah,
when
yeah.
they were living together in the little hut, preparing to go to the tribe. So in the year of 1958.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for doing this research. This is so helpful.
This is so
You're just,
cool.
bringing some of these
images
pictures
And a
to life.
lot of
alive.
these pictures
That's
Elizabeth took. This is Elizabeth and Jim the year they got married.
Wow.
So, and that's
That's
her Wheaton College picture.
That's so cool.
Which ones are you looking
I think this is her.
Yeah.
Okay, so the bottom
tribe.
picture, so the top picture is her with Waodani.
Okay.
The bottom picture is Elizabeth with Rachel Saint. That is
Okay.
Nate's Saint's
Oh,
sister.
older
It is
si-
the
older sister.
missionary
Not wife,
woman.
the sister.
not- sister.
Yes.
His wife Marge. What all of the wives still stayed in ministry except for I think Olive Fleming. I think Olive Fleming went home to America, but all the other wives stayed in missions work for a while. In different areas. And so Marge was in missions work in South America, but just not with the Waodani. So Rachel, Nate's sister, was with her, and they were both linguists. Like I said, Rachel was with Wycliffe, and Elizabeth was more independent.
That's awesome. So I've been
so
writing
cool.
down some questions that I think would be really helpful for our students, anybody watching or listening to think about. But before we jump into like the application, is there anything that you're like, I will not be able to sleep tonight if I don't tell them this like fact or detail story about
So Elizabeth
Elliot?
didn't die with the Waodani people.
Okay.
She stayed there for about 5-6 years, and then through a series of circumstances, it'll probably come up in the application. Just disagreements on the mission field with Rachel. Kind of
You
remind
know
me of
those
Paul
Rachels. They're so difficult. I'm joking.
So kind of like Paul and Barnabas.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Lord used that
Yeah.
sharp disagreement to
Yeah.
part their ways.
Part.
And she ended up going home to America. And that's really where her years and years of ministry. She kind of saw, initially she left the Waodani, went back to Shandia and continued to minister to the Quechua people. But she realized without Jim here, I'm lacking a lot of skills in order to live
Gotcha.
here in the jungle. And so she moved back to America. And that's really where her teaching, book writing, speaking engagement ministry. She became an adjunct professor at Gordon Conwell Seminary.
Wow.
She married 2 more times. So she didn't die with the Waodani.
Yeah, and some people might be like, "Oh, you gave up," or "Well, why did you do that?" But she came back to inspire so many different people.
Yeah.
To be able to write so many different books that wouldn't have been able to be written had she stayed.
She was able to
That's
share the
amazing.
story. She was able to share all
Right.
the stories of what happened, and many women and men have been inspired by her writings to go and tell the gospel to the lost people group. I don't think she failed, and I don't think
No.
she would think she failed. In fact, one of the ways she would always get like, do you see it as a success? And she's like, well, if we measure success by numbers, like maybe not success. She's like, but if we measure success by obedience to God,
Yeah.
yes.
Right.
We obeyed God.
That's going to be one of my questions in a minute.
We
Yeah.
did what God called us to do. And she's like, and the Waodani have the gospel. She's like, it is their choice to choose now.
Sure.
But they have the gospel. And they
Right.
do finally have a New Testament in their language.
That's
In
awesome.
Right.
I think 94 or 95 is when it was
That's
finally
incredible.
That's so
written.
cool.
Well, and I
Yeah.
think about it. We've mentioned C.T. Studd on this podcast before. We did a sermon mentioning him, but we got to do a true episode one time. And then I think of Hudson Taylor. We need to do an episode on him. Both of those people were kind of known and famous for going overseas to Africa or China in the same way that Elisabeth Elliot went to Ecuador. But so much of their impact was not only what they did in those countries. It was also coming back to England or coming back to the U.S. and preaching or sharing and giving testimonies and inspiring so many more other
Agreed.
people to go and be missionaries and to write books that we're still being inspired by today. So I think sometimes we could view that as like, oh, you got lazy, oh, you couldn't hang, you just kind of had to throw in the towel and come do the easy American thing. But I think for some people, like their heart is sometimes even to stay overseas, but they know that being obedient is not doing what they want to do,
Right.
Or maybe there's a feeling of guilt that comes with that. But they're saying, even though I feel like maybe I should be overseas, or I feel like this didn't go the way I wanted to, they're being obedient.
Right. And she wrestled with that. She wrestled with people's perceptions of her leaving. And that's why she stayed for as long as she did, even though the lack of comfort, even though her daughter kept saying, I miss my aunt, I miss my cousins, and she also like starting to see Valerie's need for education and everything. She's like, am I failing my daughter? Like she wrestled with a lot of these things, but like I said, obedience to Christ. The Lord, in the Old Testament, it says to obey is better than sacrifice.
Yeah.
And she obeyed the call of the Lord back to America, and she had a phenomenal ministry for decades.
So I think her story is so inspiring. I mean, that point that you just read a little bit ago, where Menkai, when he said, "I was your husband's killer, but I consider you a sister. I consider you a friend. I consider your brother to be my brother. You are my family." That is just inspirational. It's the gospel.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You who were once alienated and hostile in mind, doing evil deeds, God is now reconciled. Colossians 1. He takes enemies and makes them friends. He takes enemies of God and makes them his sons and daughters. But it's inspirational. But I do want to maybe boil it down to a few questions. I've got like a dozen here that I know we won't have time for. But going back near the beginning of her story, still Wheaton College and preparing while they're dating, long distance. You talked about how the Lord prepared her, how she was getting all of this education, formal and informal. She was getting experience on the mission field before she even settled down with Jim in Ecuador. Would you mind talking to us just a little bit about the importance of preparing for ministry? Because I think we've said this before. I don't want to say it all over again, but sometimes we're like, I want to be on YouTube. I want to be on the stage. I want the following. And it's like,
Right.
but what are you doing right now to prepare for that?
Right.
Or even people who are saying, I want to be married to a Jim Elliot type guy one
Right.
day.
Right.
Okay, but what are you doing to become that type of woman or
Yeah.
that type of man
Yeah.
if you're
Preparation is key. I think that, like I said to Josiah, reading this book, I just kept weeping because it felt like visiting with an old friend who I had missed and longed to see. I hadn't read her books in years. Like I said, I haven't read much since becoming a mom. It's just a lot.
that's a full-time, that's 2 full-time, 3 full-time jobs.
And overstimulating.
But in the past 2
Yeah,
weeks,
yeah.
you read 2
Yeah.
books.
Oh my gosh. And the last 2
You're
weeks
killing
I've
it.
read 2 books and it's been amazing to visit with Elisabeth. I was really, truly discipled by her and her love for the word of God. And I remember reading in Proverbs 31 when I was a young woman, it said, the heart of her husband trusts in her and has no lack of gain. He trusts in her all the days of his life. And something about that hit me was like, all the days of his life? That means now. That means if I get married, my husband's alive now. So does his heart trust in me now? All the days, the way that I am holding myself, living amongst my life, preparing for my life with him. I remember being kind of challenged by that. Like, if my husband is alive right now, and now I know who my husband is, he was.
There you go.
Right.
There you go.
Does the heart of my husband trust in me even now? And that really started me towards the path of like these things that I want to do someday. I want to be in ministry. I want to be married. I want to be a mom. I have to prepare for them now. I'm
Right.
not just going to wake up someday and be ready for it.
Right.
So the I think Elisabeth said it somewhere here. She talked about the I'm not going to find it.
Of course, yeah, you got
because
so much research,
but she talked about like obeying, like starting here, starting now, like where you are. Josiah mentioned that Jim said, wherever you all are, be all there.
Yeah.
So like, I knew that God had called me to ministry. I knew that I needed a degree in some way. I knew that because I was called to ministry, that probably meant not a lot of finances. So I was like, God, if you want me to finish my college degree, you're going to have to provide a way. Both Josiah and I were able to graduate with our undergrad degrees debt free.
That's amazing.
And and he was able to get his master's degree debt free.
and he's this close
Then
to
he's
being
this
done
close.
with his MDiv. We're so proud of him.
So it's just like we've always tried to prepare that way, prepare our finances. You can't just like wake up one day and say like, I'm ready to do the thing.
Oh man,
It is
Yeah.
so important to put yourself in a place of readiness, which is what Elisabeth did, which is what Jim did. I love one thing that Jim said is like, he's like, just like Paul says, I make my body ready. He's like, I exercise and I box so that I'm ready to do whatever God. He didn't know he was going to go to the jungles of Ecuador.
Yeah, I
he
think
didn't know
there's-
what he was going to be called to do. He prepared his body to be ready for that call.
Yeah, I think there's so many people that we look at the idea of college or university training and we go, do I really need that? And it's like, you don't know what you need yet.
Right.
And so I've had a conversation with a few people who want to be in youth ministry or they want to be a pastor one day. And they'll say, do I really need to? I'll say, yeah, you do. Because here's what would be a shame. If God puts a burden on your heart or puts a call on your heart, however you think about that, to go be a pastor in this place or to that church or with that missionary agency, if you get to that point and you get a desire and that starts to excite you, how tragic would it be if the only thing standing between you and that next step is a piece of paper?
Right.
It's a diploma or a
letter.
degree,
Yeah.
a letter,
Yeah.
and you're going, does that stuff really matter? Well, it might on that day. And you might
Yeah.
think, well, I shouldn't need, well, we want to send the best of the best.
Right.
We want to send people who are prepared, who've
Right.
done everything they can to be good stewards. We're going to invest money into supporting
Right.
them financially. So, yeah,
And that doesn't
it
mean
does matter.
everyone needs a college degree.
Not
It just
necessarily,
means,
yeah.
It means being,
But some sort of training, is the
be
idea.
prepared. Like for some people that might be like, hey, you want to go into ministry overseas, like become an electrician. Go to
Yeah.
missionary aviation fellowship.
Right.
Like get your pilot's license. Do
Become a
something.
mechanic.
Like
Fix the
Elisabeth
airplanes.
went
Yeah.
to midwifery school.
Yeah.
Like she was able to do these things. She had training
Yeah.
in order to do it.
You don't all have to learn Greek. For
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. That's
Right.
cool. But,
Right.
And
Yeah.
I
But
was
if
just
you-
learning some cool things about Bible
Yeah.
translation recently. But,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but they were preparing.
Yeah.
Preparation allows you to have less obstacles in your way whenever the call comes.
So good. That is so good.
I think that's so good because sometimes students think, for me to prepare, I have to have a goal at something, right? So like, if I know God has already given me a calling overseas, then boom, I'm going to learn how to be with these tribes. Or I'm going to learn how to be with these certain people. I'm going to learn their language, right? It's easy for that preparation. But preparing for the calling God put on your life, and you don't know exactly like where it is. I think some students, some young adults might even be struggling with that. I
Right.
mean, everybody struggles with that, right?
Sure, it's hard.
I mean, I didn't know what I was going to do. And like, here's the thing is like, even though I said something about preparing for marriage is like, I didn't even want to be married. I wanted to be a single Christian woman missionary. Like I looked up to Amy Carmichael and Elisabeth Elliot, who was a widow. I looked up to these women that were on the field with. There were women in my life that were single and in their 40s and 50s.
I don't need no man.
But I knew like the majority of people get married, especially in Christianity, and I do not believe that I have the gift of celibacy. So if I'm
have a couple
going,
kids now, so I think we know that much.
if I'm going to get married someday, which likelihood probably will, I need to prepare for it. So like I said, preparation is the ability to remove obstacles out of the way for whatever God calls you to do when the call comes.
That is so good. I wanted to ask too, because we could spend all day here. You did such a good job, Rachel. Thank you so much. I wanted to ask as well about you said that some people didn't understand her relationship with Jim. 5 years, basically long distance. I think Josiah said they met in person 5 times over 5 years. And the rest of it is letters or maybe a few really expensive phone calls. Yeah,
a couple phone calls, a couple. Yeah.
So I think that just kind of illustrated a few times in her life when she probably had a lot of people saying, "Don't do this. This is not the right way to go." It's probably going to be really difficult when you're in a seat like Elisabeth's to know, am I just being stubborn? Am I just being ornery, difficult, hard to get along with? Or am I being prideful or even arrogant, unteachable?
Yeah.
I wonder, I don't know for sure, but I wonder if some people use those terms when they were talking to her, saying, you're just being an obstinate young woman. Even when she was taking her child back into the Amazon to live with her husband's killers. Would you have any advice for like how to discern, what do I do when I'm being misunderstood? I think I have a clear idea of what God is calling me to, but not everybody around me understands it, and they may never understand it. Would you have any advice for somebody who's in a seat like that one day?
Yeah. So Elisabeth wrote about this a lot, and what it came to was she needed to know her God. She needed to know her God and His voice. And a verse that I think of is Isaiah 42:16. It says, "And I will lead the blind in a way that they do not know. Along paths that they have not known, I will guide them. I will turn the darkness before them into light, the rough places into level ground. These are the things that I do, and I will not forsake them." So even when your path before you looks confusing, dark, rough, and people don't understand it, all these outside voices coming in at you, knowing that it is the Lord who guides, it's the Lord who makes straight, it's the Lord who smooths those rough paths, knowing His way and saying, no matter what, I'm going to obey God because He is trustworthy, He is faithful, He is true, and He is good. And that is what characterized her life. Her life was characterized like she struggled with these outward pressures of all these opinions and views of her, and it weighed on her. And she had a long season of depression after Jim's death because of all these voices and negativity.
Now the whole world has an opinion about what you should do next.
And she struggled. But really what it came down to is the Lord brought some old friends that were also missionaries that knew her and loved her and helped her remember, listen to God's voice. Listen to God's voice. That's what we need to know. And how do we know God's voice? Through His word.
Right. Because I bet she was struggling with that discernment, or some people would think as like, can she discern? Are the people around her giving her godly wisdom, godly advice to like, don't go back, right? Is God speaking through them? But if you know God's voice, right, you'll be able to discern that even more.
And what she rested in is she's like, I'm loved by God. I'm
enough.
loved by God.
And that's it.
And no one may know me, but He knows me.
Wow. Wow.
Rachel, I think we've hit the record for the longest episode. No, don't be sorry. I'm not sorry at all. I'm not disappointed at all. I'm like, there is so much goodness here. There's so much more that we could say. And one thing that we just got to mention, if anybody watching or listening to this is thinking, wow, the church, Christianity is a patriarchal society and they don't have any place for women, pay attention, because we're being encouraged by a woman who's in ministry right now, and we're studying and being encouraged by the testimony of somebody who was an absolute legend in the faith.
Since you said that, I have to read this quote.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Of Elisabeth. The fact that I'm a woman does not make me a different kind of Christian, but the fact that I'm a Christian makes me a different kind of woman.
Oh my goodness. That is so good. Whether you are a man or a woman, understand God is got a purpose and a plan for your life. And he can do so much through your life if you will just be obedient and say yes. So we've got some recommended reading for you. Would love for you to consider picking up these books, these resources to be encouraged. I can't wait to have you on again one day, Rachel. We really would love to do that one day. So why don't we do this? Like, subscribe, do all those things, comment, because not just because we're vain. Spencer is very vain. He loves to see those numbers.
That's it.
He wakes up every day. How many views did we get? I'm joking. But really, it will help the algorithm get this conversation to more people so that they can be encouraged.
Right.
And that's just the way these things work.
But it's not all in vain today, because if they do that, if you like, comment, subscribe, and share,
then you can be selfish. I mean, you can get something for yourself.
Yeah.
You can get a book.
Can get something out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But do those four things, and we'll put you into a drawing. And I think they get to choose their book. I think that's what we came.
Yeah, that's
to.
any book in the whole world. No, one of these books by Elizabeth.
And a
Elliot.
30-minute interview with Miss Rachel Brondike. It might turn into an hour because she has so much information, so much good information.
So blow up the comments. Let everybody know what a great job Rachel did. We're grateful for you. But this has been the Ordinary Legends podcast. We will see you again next time.